on the line with Richard Garriott. The game is Shroud of the Avatar, and the studio name is Portalarium. A little synopsis in the game. Shroud of the Avatar Forsaken Virtues is a fantasy RPG that combines a single-player narrative with a sandbox MMO.
BRB.
Thank you.
And double check the audio.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, you sound good.
Great. Okay, so we're currently in the game. I'm trying to make my way to Richard. Richard, you said you're in Valemar?
To me, or
Yes.
that would,
I almost typed in Richard. It's not allowed for you at the moment, it says.
so how about what if I do the reverse here? Hang on a second. Hang on. Let me summon you. I can do that.
Sounds good.
And is your character Beetlebear? Is that?
It's John Beetlebear.
John Beetlebear, of course. Okay, I must have misspelled it. So, do you want to help me with the spelling?
Yes, John space Beetlebear.
That's what I put. Oh, there you go. Now it worked. I
Here we go.
did it right the first time, and it must have a little typo.
Well, I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us today on this fine day. We've been playing your game for 2 weeks straight, and I am a huge fan of yours from a long time ago, but it is an honor to formally have this interview with you, and hopefully we're not too rough on you with the questions.
Not at all. No, I scanned through them ahead of time, and I'm happy to answer all those and anything else that pops up from our wanderings or discussions with others that we might run into in game, or seeing you and chatting. There you go. Now you've just arrived.
That sounds great. All right. So, while some of us might know a lot about you and your studio and also the games that you've created, some might not. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Portalarium itself?
Sure, absolutely. So, I have the perhaps dubious honor in this first part of being, one of the early founders of the computer gaming industry, which sort of means I've been doing this as long as anybody. I was making games as far back as the 1970s and started publishing in the 1980s. Wrote a series of games that, if you know me, I'm best known for a series of games called Ultima. Ultima's 1 through 9 and Ultima Online. And even if you haven't played those games, since they were popular, most popular about a decade ago, you probably have heard of at least a few of the things that have come out of the games I've worked on. For example, the term avatar, which is pretty ubiquitous now in games and movies, is a term that I founded with Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, when I wanted to make sure that your character was not an alter ego. You weren't playing... I mean, if you were role-playing Conan the Barbarian, you should be expected to act like the morally ambiguous Conan. But I wanted in my game this to be you, the real human player that was responsible for the actions of your character. And so I created the term avatar to be your manifestation in this world that I borrowed from Sanskrit for deities manifesting on Earth. And even if another thing you might know is the broad genre of massively multiplayer games. And while online games have existed, as soon as we had computers, we began to network them together. But Ultima Online is really seen as the first and coining the term for massively multiplayer role-playing games, where literally hundreds of thousands or millions of players can play it together in a virtual world connected to a central server. So anyway, those are obviously, I think, some noteworthy moments in gaming that I helped cause. And this game, Shroud of the Avatar, is sort of our spiritual successor to that series. We hope that people will both appreciate the kind of homage to the gameplay style that I had put into the Ultima series, as well as some of the new features that we think are going to take role-playing games in the future. I personally have been a little bit critical of the stagnation, I would call it, in some of the aspects of the of role-playing games, especially online role-playing games. And hopefully Shroud of the Avatar will lead us into the future.
I definitely have been calling this game a culmination of what I would consider all of your game design experience and game development experience. It's very obvious from as a player who's played many of your games and seeing all these things in here all combined together in a very neat and brilliant fashion. So really appreciate that essence of Richard Garriott that you find in a lot of your games.
Yeah, no, I think that's true too. In fact, before we even started this game, I wrote up a treatise online. I put it up on Facebook among other places, called "What is a Lord British Role-Playing Game?" And I wrote, and when I did that, I sort of went through this analysis of the games, my own games of the past, and said, here are the essential features I'm pulling forward into the future. Even from Tabula Rasa, another game that I did that was not an Ultima. Some of the control points and character and creature AI.
I still have my dog tag somewhere around here.
Yeah, great, excellent. And then also the kind of the big things we wanted to do going forward. Some of the new things with this selective multiplayer that we're working on now. I think is also kind of a key pillar that we are working on going forward.
Okay.
By the way, you'll see I just invited you into my party, just so we can, that'll be a little easier to track each other down. There you go.
Definitely. So I'm not sure, do you want to run around and kind of show people anything interesting while we go through some of the questions?
Well, let's see. Let's go. Outside. It's even though we're standing here in this pleasant campfire with some of our why don't I let me zone, or let's just walk out of the town. Let's just head out. Interestingly, we both kind of arrived here in this town, so I'm not even sure which way is out. But I suspect if we come over here, we'll find the main road, and should be able to find a way out shortly. But yeah, well, go ahead and throw out the next question too, and I'll do a little exploring here, looking for the path out of this town. So if you follow me around here, I'll go counterclockwise around the outer perimeter of the town here, looking for the exit.
So how did you get started in the gaming industry? I understand Calabeth is your first game, and I remember reading something about you putting it in Ziploc bags and selling it at the local liquor store. That's kind of the story that I heard, but I'm sure you'd be the foremost expert on how you got started.
Well, that's actually close to right. Look, I also led us over here to a giant cliff to fall off of here if we're not careful. And while my character, by the way, is largely invulnerable, I fear that if you follow me over this edge, we might not be so lucky. So let's go down and around, see if we can find a safer way down this cliff face. But that story is almost right. So in the 1970s, I wrote the first games I wrote when I was truly just teaching myself how to program. That was on a teletype. Actually, I have a teletype like I have in my office in Austin. I have a teletype I bought on eBay years later. But that used spools of paper tape to read the program into a computer. The computer didn't even have a video display. It was a teletype, would print on paper. So it was a very primitive device. But then as soon as the Apple II computer came out, suddenly I had a computer that was much more powerful. It allowed me to also create 3D graphics instead of just text. And then it was the owner of a Computerland store, not a liquor store, but it was the owner of the Computerland store where I had occasionally worked my first summer jobs helping to sell these first generation of Apple II computers. He looked at this game that I had made and he said, Richard, this game you kind of made here in your spare time, after school and here at our store is way better than the 2 or 3 other games that were for sale back in that day. Because most of the early games were coin-op knockoffs. So they were things like Appleoids instead of asteroids, or they might be a centipede variant. Things that only took a week or two to code, but were pretty much the same as you could play for a quarter, down at the local video arcade. And I stepped outside. I don't know if you're coming out as well, but oh, there you are. It looks like I see you now. Come out. So now we're. By the way, for those who don't know, we've left the town. The way the game works is we've created a world that is a combination of kind of regional close-up maps where you can see the towns and the houses and the NPCs like we were just in. By the way, we didn't stop to say hi to those people, but those people sitting around those campfires were actually real live players playing in the game right now themselves. But now we've left the town, and we're in the outdoor map. And the outdoor map is your way to navigate across the broad game and explore other environments. So we're now going to go look for some adventure.
So was it your intention with the overworld map to simplify the boring travel that you find in a lot of games, yet while giving it endless possibilities and making it fun again? Because that's really what I've seen here.
Yes, and well, it was for a couple of reasons. One is exactly what you said, which is that when you create a single scale map, one of the downsides to that single scale map is that you end up having a ton of empty space required to kind of just fill with, and we find that not only is not as fun for the players, but it also puts this just enormous amount of extra work on top of us as developers to create these mostly empty zones for people to then spend all that time walking through. And so we thought it would actually be much better if we broke it up into this dual scale of existence that would allow us to focus our development time on the maps that were interesting, on the places that we wanted to develop encounters for or scenarios for, and let you more speedily walk through the next zone. I'm going to go right here into North Valeway. This is just an area along the road. We're just going to go in here and do a little searching for resources, as well as see what creatures might live out here in this part of the outdoor wilderness. So we can come now down inside here, and I'll wait for you to arrive as well. There you are. And so we actually, we've had these actually quite large debates about not only the existence of this dual scale map, but then especially what to make that outdoor part of the world look like. And we've and let me also change out my inventory here a little bit too. I see that I was playing with the Bandu polearm, which is from Star Citizen. We actually have a joint activity going with Star Citizen, and here is the sword that was actually made for me by one of the players.
I think I read somewhere that you personally know Chris Roberts too, right?
Oh yeah, of course. He was a partner of mine in back at Origin. So we developed Ultima and Wing Commander side by side at Origin. By the way, you'll see the flaming sword I'm using was literally crafted by a player, Jaren Schwartzhaar, and it was given to me, many moons ago. I see you're being attacked by spiders. I'm so sorry. I was looking away and wasn't even thinking to help you here. So pardon me. Let me give you a hand here.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'll protect you, my lord, but you have invulnerable skin.
Yeah. Which is actually something we're talking about changing now. So you're hearing it here first, but we're some of the players have been some of the role players have been lobbying to say, look, instead of being so perfectly invulnerable, which makes it not terribly fulfilling to say, everybody please protect the king, when of course the king needs literally no protection. We're actually now trying to work out exactly how to change my state of invulnerability to where it's not quite so pure, shall we say, so that it's more interesting to roleplay the game. I was roleplay with Lord British in your party like we are now. I was in the middle of a story though about the outdoor map, saying, we've for those who have been in the game a long time, I'm going to go off-roading here a little bit. I'm going to look for some resources to harvest by going off the main thoroughfare and a little bit more into the woods here. But when you look at the way we started, we had meant to have sort of a simplified outdoor map that looked a little bit more like you might imagine you have seen in like in what's the movie? Indiana Jones, where you might have had this travel map to take you from place to place.
Right.
We even tried one version of letting the outdoor map look like the cloth map to make it very clearly not the adventure-looking map. And but players, even though there was a lot of debate, we had players on both sides of the fence. But we've now grown very happy with what we were just seeing, which is a more realistically rendered outdoor map. And in fact, there's some enhancements going into this next release that'll be out here at the end of this week. So when I jumped out there, one of the things I wanted to do is look up at the sky so you can see the phases of the moon and the star, which we can do in here. We can look up like right now. I presume you've looked up and you've seen the shattered moon that is in the sky above us.
Yes.
And that is a remnant of the cataclysm, which occurred 400 years ago in game fiction. And but in the outdoor map, since it was originally a kind of top-down, rapid travel, symbolic place, you couldn't look up. You could only be forced to look down, because when you look up, the camera comes close to the ground, and that outdoor map wasn't built for that kind of resolution of view. Well, we're starting to toy with, and people will see it in this next revision, the ability to look up in the outdoor map. It's still contentious amongst the team members, but it's something I'm pretty excited about.
I did notice this morning, speaking of lore, that you do have a book that you co-wrote with Tracy Hickman on Shroud of the Avatar. What can players come to expect in how that book relates to the game?
Yeah, well, so when Tracy and I sat down to write the story for Shroud of the Avatar, in fact, I should mention that first, which is if I look back at the historical Ultima stories, some of them I think were very good. Some of them, the early ones, of course, were extremely simple. Ultimas 1, 2, and 3. Oops, here comes a skeleton. Watch out. Skeletons are very tough, by the way, too. You'll notice that they popped up from being, when they are not engaged with people, they sort of lie still on the ground.
I love that.
And also, once you kill them, they are capable of many times getting right back up and attacking again, which this one between us just did. And so, they're one of they've turned into being one of the tougher monsters right now. In fact, they might be a little too tough. But there you go. One of them at least is down. Looks like they're both down for the count.
Roasted their bones.
But back to the story. I think of the first really good story in an Ultima to me was Ultima 4 with Quest of the Avatar, a story about virtues, about the virtue theme into the game. But I think the best told stories were when I had a really strong writing partner. For example, Warren Spector often co-wrote many of the games with me, and I think those are some of the best told stories are the stories that were written in collaboration with Warren. And by the way, see that skeleton just over this ridge from me? My guess is that, there's one behind us even, so sorry. And in fact, the guy down below just got up as well. So you can see how they will often make sure that we keep you in good health as well.
Whoa, I like that spell you just cast.
Thanks. That's just I want to keep you healed up if possible. That's a little soothing rain for you.
Wow, that's really cool.
So when I started in on Shroud of the Avatar, I knew that I wanted to work with a strong writer. Warren is now up running the University of Texas Gaming Academy, and so he wasn't really available, although he would have been a great collaborator. And Tracy Hickman is somebody that I've collaborated with, not in games, but in other activities before, and is the writer I respect the most, who's still living. And so I was very excited to approach Tracy and see if he would be willing. And Tracy similarly had sort of been waiting for the time when he and I could collaborate in games. And so we were both very excited to take on Shroud of the Avatar together. And so the first thing we did is we sat down and said, look, if we're going to write the story of the player's life in Shroud of the Avatar, we first have to know the backstory of the world. And so we had to write what was effectively Blade of the Avatar. We at least had to outline it. And we worked together on this outline. And I would say what's interesting about the outline is I would describe us as equal participants. In fact, if anything, I was probably the leader of the outline because it had to fit the need of the game. And I'm obviously a much more experienced computer game developer than Tracy is. And so when we had that outline done, I was very pleased with it. we then got an offer to formally publish it, and so while we accepted that, that part of writing final prose is really Tracy's magic. And when he went off to go do the final prose, I expected to see a manuscript come back that basically looked and read like our outline did, because I thought we'd done a good job with the outline. And when he started turning in the chapters for the final prose, I was shocked how much better his final prose is than anything we wrote. In fact, it was so much richer, so much more detailed, so much more beautiful and deep in almost any way you can consider it. I then went, well, that's why you're the professional writer and I'm not. And so Blade of the Avatar was born as a final written work. A lot of our backers get it digitally, and it's also now going to be published in print form as well. And so I think it's quite exciting. We then own to write the forward story of Shroud of the Avatar in the game together, which we're now implementing back in Austin into the game. But I think players who want to play in Shroud of the Avatar, if you read Blade of the Avatar, you'll understand the world much better by having been through that. And I'm coming over to see what this little puff of smoke is. There's sort of the smoke that keeps coming up out of the ground here. I really have no idea what that is.
I've seen that a couple times, usually in the swamps, but I wondered what that was.
There we go. I actually don't know. That one's new to me. But in any case, you don't need to read Blade of the Avatar by any means. I think you will have a rich experience in the game without reading it. But if you really want to understand the world and the shattered moon that we saw overhead, and the fiction about where and how the magic comes from in our world, then reading Blade of the Avatar, I think, would be a big plus for people. Okay, well, let's see if we can find. It's funny. There's you can see some programmer text in here.
Placeholder.
But yeah, there is the replace with the crypt prefab. That's obviously something that somebody's still working on as we speak. I want to go find the exit, which I think we'd passed a little while ago. We go back over this way, and we'll go back to the outdoor map. Oh wait, here we go. Here's some cotton. I think there's actually a bug in the cotton that it describes itself as flax periodically. I think there's kind of we're in the middle of a transition right now. Let's see if it says. Actually, that one looks like it's saying right to me. And success. So I've now harvested that raw cotton. So as you explore the world, you'll see, in fact, that's actually something else to make a note about what I think one of the unique features of a Lord British game versus, World of Warcraft or EverQuest or some of the others. I tend to think that would argue that most role-playing games are chasing the designs championed and refined by EverQuest and World of Warcraft. And by the way, they're doing that because it's a good model. And it's obviously very successful. So I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I am a huge fan of both of those products personally. But the way I would argue that those are designed or more design-like than mine is those are level-based games. Everyone in the game is largely a combatant. Almost no one isn't a combatant.
Right.
But as a combatant, you might also have some extra skills like crafting or harvesting or things. But you mostly do combat, you do some crafting on the side, and your world exploration is usually gated by your level. So when you're level 1, you're restricted to a certain area. When you're level 2, you get a little bit more of an area you can explore, and level 3 a little more. And also, if you play with a party, you sort of all need to be within plus or minus 5 levels of the same level. Just you need to be ranged close together to be relevant to each other, not just be either killed or overpowered compared to what your friends are.
Right.
And the way I've designed Ultimas and Ultima Online has been very different from that. We wanted the world to be completely open. You can go anywhere you want at any time, even as a low-level player. There might be some spots that are hither and yon that might be smarter to wait till you're higher level.
Definitely.
But we want it to be that open exploration is important. We want leveling to be less important, so you get a chance to play together with friends who are not as devoted to playing as many hours as you might be.
Right.
Vice versa. And just as importantly, we want people to have full, rich lives who choose never to be combatants. which I think we did a very good job of in Ultima Online, but we're trying to double down here in Shroud of the Avatar, where, if I am, a tailor, for example, this cotton that I just harvested might be quite valuable, and somebody would have to come out here into the woods or the wilds to go track it down or farm it somewhere. And by the way, I'm headed out of town here, as you can tell. Let's see, is there something harvestable over here? Nope. Let's head back outdoors. And but we want to have the people who choose to be crafters or retailers, shopkeepers, bartenders, things of this nature, to have rich and full lives without regard to their chosen occupation, which may have literally nothing to do with combat. And now, hang on, there's a place I'm looking for that I can't remember which side of the ravine it's on here. Let's go around this way. I think it might be around here. There's sort of a bandit hangout that I'm going to go try to find around this way. We might have to go back and cross over the river to find. There it is, Owl's Nest. Yeah, it looks like we have to go to the other side. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
But
in the meanwhile, do you have any interesting stories in relation to the gaming industry that you could share?
Having been in here a long time, I could probably tell you a few. In fact, one of the most sordid stories is really related to the most early period of time. It looks like we're going to be blocked off going this way too. This is people have been since last I was over here. The team has been making this explanation go fairly hard. If you look up ahead, there's Owl's Nest is the place I'm going to try to go. It looks like we're going to have to take the truly long way around and go all the way around this mountain pass to get around there. So we're going to go on a longer than usual excursion. So bear with. Although I find something else interesting along the way, I may deviate. But in fact, the Obsidian Keep is a fun place to go. Let's go over here. This is a good one.
Oh, nice.
One of my favorites, actually. The early days of this industry really were like the Wild West. There were a lot of new experimental gamers making games, while the total money in the games industry was pretty small. So the big companies like Time Warner and big media companies, the whole industry wasn't big enough for them to want to play in it. But for the few players that were in early, myself and others, it was relatively easy money, quote unquote. In other words, you for a relatively modest amount of time, you could you could create a game that would bring in more than its fair share of cash. And these largely cash-based businesses also tended to spoil or draw in either draw in unsavory characters or spoil some of these new young guns who frankly didn't have good business sense. And so the earliest days of this industry was filled with high-flying, quick crashing companies where often their leaders were not only incompetent from a business standpoint, but often unscrupulous. And so my first two publishers, as a case in point, both went out of business, despite the fact that me and others were giving them top-selling games at the time, because they were an interesting combination of frankly, just bad businessmen, as well as often as not, drug addicts that were squandering the money that we were providing them with our games, as quickly as we could provide them the games themselves.
Wow.
I've summoned a little fire elemental that might be able to give us a little hand here in combat.
Nice. So have you attended any trade shows for Shroud of the Avatar yet? And do you plan to, if not?
We do plan to do a lot, and we have started, but the way we've started, since we are a crowd-funded game, we don't want to be spending players' money on marketing if we can help it. Even though I'm sure they understand that we need to market the game, and so at some level they wouldn't mind, and in fact likely would expect it. We just are trying to be as completely frugal as possible. So what we do is we will partner with a bigger company that is going to the show that is usually like a hardware maker, whether it's Alienware or Plantronics, maybe Unity, people whose hardware we appreciate and utilize and often show off. And by partnering with those companies, that lets us come into. By the way, I've been looting all these corpses, maybe taking some of the treasure that you were deserving of too. So I don't know if you have been doing that much, but I presume you've been collecting some treasure in your couple of weeks in the game so far. So
most of the time, I let everybody else loot. I just have a lot of fun, kind of run around with other people and doing whatever we end up doing, which could be anything, any given day.
Well, let me give you a little bit about this structure here too. So we're here in the Obsidian Keep, and one of the things I like about the Obsidian Keep, and I'm trying to get close enough to it. This has got it's been rebuilt a bit since last I was here. It looks like a piece of art is actually missing, but you'll notice that we can't get across this moat, and in fact, the drawbridge is up. And there's a little clue over here. If you look at this guy who's dead here with his corpse, he has a note on him that you can't read just yet, but will be online here shortly. There you go. Did you shoot that?
I figured I was supposed to shoot it, but it let me just double click on it.
Ah, okay, yeah, you're supposed to have to shoot it.
But I got the clue. I see the dead archer near the entrance, and I'm like, maybe he was trying to shoot a light out or something.
Exactly. You got it exactly. And you can see there's one of the archway pieces of art here has somehow disappeared. But that's one of the main ways into this. There's other clues that can lead you around to finding a key in a well that's nearby. But either way, this particular area has been recently overrun by Lich, and there's a variety of ways in, all of which are intended to be a bit of a puzzle, and is sort of an example for how we're beginning to build these adventures in kind of staged puzzle ways, so that you don't just run in and see an environment full of. By the way, this is a pretty high level area. I see that you are suffering a bit, my friend. Let me again see if I can't. There we go. Bring nice. In a little
healing rain.
By the way, if you or I die, well, if you die, I'm afraid it'll be a little harder for you to die. But if you die, that'll give us a chance to demonstrate a couple of other features of death, because we try to make death be entertaining as well in this game.
Well, here, I'll let myself die really quick, and we can go over that.
I wouldn't. You don't need to let it happen. I suspect by the time you get to these maps, might happen whether we like it or not. Since this is a bit of a tougher space, maybe I'll be drawing more of the impact than usual. So they might target that.
So where does the concept for Shroud of the Avatar originate? I know that it's probably influenced by Ultima and some of your other games, but is there any specific point in time, a story that was written or anything like that?
What the way I have done stories since Ultima 4, they're all stories about virtue broadly, but they tend to kind of follow contemporary social issues as they go. So, for example, if you look back at Ultima 4, it was just a game about proving yourself to be a person of good virtue. Ultima 5 was a story, frankly, sort of a commentary about the people who were back at that time. There were a lot of TV evangelists and folks who were really critical of things like computer games, in my mind, ignorantly, and often were also the people who were being found out as cheating on their wives and otherwise being pretty horrible people, and so Ultima 5 was sort of my commentary against a lot of the critics of gaming, these self-righteous individuals in my mind, inappropriately self-righteous, especially. And so when we get up here to Shroud of the Avatar, it's to me it is a bit of a story about comparative philosophy, shall we say? Talking a bit about how and why you can derive a system of personal morals or ethics, and why I think that's a rational thing to do, but also can be interpreted fairly broadly. But it's also unlike a lot of our previous games, where you were sort of forced to conform to the virtue story as we saw it, or as I saw it. We now are letting people kind of choose a darker path for the first time if we wish. So sort of as this game has kind of two paths through it, not just one.
Now, speaking on that, I remember the notoriety system from Ultima Online being pretty awesome. Is there any plans for something like that in this game?
Yeah, we won't be doing quite the same. You know what? Remember I mentioned this key that we could have gone to get? I just went up there to try to open that door, and since we didn't bring the key with us, we actually can't get through the main gates to the back room. So we made to make a run back out to the key in that wishing well that I had been referring to. But I'm sorry, what was your question there, or did I miss the
notoriety system in Ultima Online? I'm wondering, that was so innovative as far as reputation goes, and the only other game I ever saw anything like that existed, I think, was another Ultima game from longer before that.
Let's go off to your right here. I think the well where the key is off in this direction. There's the well, and I'll let you grab the key if you would like.
Sounds good. So my question was if you had any plans for a similar or even different or improved notoriety system in this game.
Yes, and the word improved is the key piece there. We, Ultima Online, as much as, of course, as the creators of Ultima Online, as many of, not only myself, but many of the members of my team are, it holds a very special place in our heart, and we think we did a lot of things quite right with that game that we're trying to recapture that don't seem to have had very many follow-ons. And yet we also personally believe there's plenty of imperfections. And so even that notoriety system, could be gamed with, in many ways. And so we have some hopefully improved ideas as to how to inform people as to the disposition of another character. There you go. Now you can probably use that. There's a keyhole just to the left of it. Instead of using if you look slightly to the left,
oh,
there you go. And so use that. And
nice.
There you go. And now you can use the lever on the front, and then we won't be shot quite so badly by those archers in front. There we go. And so, yes, there will be a notoriety system. We just haven't, until we get a few of the other systems online that are sort of feeding data into it, we haven't even made the final determination yet as to how it will be exposed to the players.
Tell us about the development of Shroud of the Avatar. How long has it been in development for?
So we have been going about 2 years now, and we should be wrapped up with episode 1 by about the end of this year. Hopefully by the end of this year, but close to the end of the year regardless. And we think that's pretty good from a time frame standpoint for a game of this scale.
Can you explain to the audience what the episodes mean? What are those?
Yes, so what we mean by that is, usually, when we did, say, Ultima 1 and then Ultima 2 and then Ultima 3, each of those games, there's the Lich. So, by the way, be careful. If this guy very well could be pretty tough for you, although it looks like he's targeting me at the moment, so that may provide you some respite.
Good thing for me.
See him getting stuck in the ground here by him, too. What we're doing with this game is, as opposed to having this kind of a steady state world where, we build the map once, and once you're playing it, the rest of the time, for us to build a sequel or anything, we have to go build a whole new game from scratch. In this case, we've instead decided to build the central continent, Novia, and produce the feature set, the kind of minimum viable feature set that we can ship in episode 1 here initially. And then about on a once-a-year cadence, we'll release new continents, new storylines, and new features that continue to expand the world from there. And that way constantly keeping it refreshed and over what could be as long as a 5-year period if we get to do them all. And then, of course, if that really works, there's nothing stopping us from doing more. But we have a broad outline for the story that lasts for 5 games. Oh, I see you are in trouble, sir. Let's see, I've got a soothing rain here that might help.
How many people are in the Portalarium studio?
There's between 20 and 30, depending on exactly how you count it. The 20 full-time employees and contractors that occasionally scale up and down through about that range. Yeah, this lich is summoning people about at the rate where he can keep killing with just 2 of us. I'm going to turn my focus to the lich as well. If we take him out, it might do better for us.
Yeah, there you go. A big fire elemental.
There we go.
What do you do when you typically hit a roadblock and become frustrated? What kind of activities kind of snap you out of that roadblock?
Oh, wait a second. Did I lost my light. I've seen the world in black and white now. Pardon, I'll answer your question in a second once I figure out what's happening on my screen. Do you see the world as expected?
Yes, I do.
Ah, interesting. I'm in sort of a night vision-y, unexpected...
Is your tone mapping on? Because tone mapping has been causing that specific problem.
Yeah. Could be... Let me see if I can get out of combat and get some light on the scene. I may have to exit and reconnect to get rid of that status, but let's see. I think the lich is at least down.
Yes, he is dead.
And, yeah, so if you don't mind, I will, I'm just going to exit and re-log in just to clear up whatever case study I have created.
Sounds good.
Right back. But now to answer your question about, what do I do when we kind of get to a stall or kind of a point of frustration. Fortunately, when you've got a team of this size and you're working on a project this scale, you always have a good combination of just things you need to slog out, things that are mid-development that you need to just finish, and you also have a fairly endless backlog of here's a whole new system that needs to be designed because somebody's about to go work on it and you need to get out ahead of them. And so what I find is that it's when you get to a creative block, and I'm now back in, here you go. When I get to a creative block on the designing a system that other people need to work on, you can then switch gears into the just do the work that somebody needs to slog out, or go in and play the game and do a bunch of QA and write up bugs, and that really gives you a sense of where we are and what needs to be done. That if you're not being as active a participant in the game as you could be, you might be missing. And so I find just kind of going back and forth between those two kinds of works, helps us stay fresh and interesting, as we're and inspiring as we're playing. I think, let's see if there is still one of the little hidden resources back here. I think not. Every time we do a new release, we hide some new little Easter eggs for little quests that get people to explore the new areas. And it looks like this one has already been removed because this was from an earlier release that we had Easter egg back there. But so let's move on and we'll find another place to go do some hunting or some exploring.
Sounds good. So other than Steam, I know players can get the game on Steam. I noticed that you have pledge levels on the website. Can you explain that pledge system a little bit?
Yes, exactly. In fact, we had our own website and the pledge levels first, so they're sort of an outgrowth of Kickstarter. When we first launched on Kickstarter, we wanted. Oh, there are some bad guys back. I think let's just head out past them though. Let's just make a run for it. When we did the Kickstarter, we wanted to say, people that just want to buy and play the game, could pay something on the order of $50 and have that available to them. We also knew in the online version of the game that things like virtual real estate were going to be popular because almost immediately in Ultima Online, the plots of land nearest the NPC central cores of towns began to trade on eBay for often much more money than the basis of gold that we asked for when people bought the land originally. And so we said, let's just pre-allocate that in some way and let people kind of buy what they want. And so we began to sell these pledges of larger amounts of real estate or more centralized real estate that people could own if they wanted to, as a pre-sale of the game in addition to being able to play. And so most of the people, coming into play through initially say Steam, are really just coming in to play. But if once they're in and playing, if they're going like, okay, I get it, I like playing in the online version, or I like crafting, they can go to our website and they can buy a whole variety of pledges and upgrades. So they can, and again, we just use that to help support the development of the game. And so people can buy, small houses through big houses, all the way up through castles. People can buy tools for crafting, which have a very, very high durability that makes them effectively such that they won't wear out. And we try to think of, or special clothing for that matter. We try to think of things that would be mostly things people go look at how cool I am because I have a really big house and lots of decorations in it. That obviously does not make you a better player, does not help you solve the game faster, does not help you, PvP others better. So we've tried to make sure that we, as much as possible, avoid the pay-to-win aspects of those pledges. But of course, we also try to look very practically at the reality is as soon as we take a game online, that anything you spend time to earn online has value. So if it took you a month of play to get the special sword, well, somebody else is going to be willing on eBay to pay you, $10 real instead of spending a month of their own time to find that rare sword.
Right.
And that immediately sets up the gold farmer reality of online games, which even myself, when I play World of Warcraft, I have more money than time in many cases. And so, I would buy gold pieces from gold farmers in, probably in China or some other region of that kind. And the problem with buying or the existence of gold farmers, and I see some other folks running. There goes Lazarus from the New Britannia News Network.
Hey, Lazarus.
Yeah, let's go follow him, see where he's headed, just for fun.
Let's go stalk Lazarus.
The fact that gold farmers will exist because of the time value of money, it's also interesting that we sort of have two issues. Since one, we can't stop it. Two, those gold farmers will then try to protect the turf that they're using to mine gold. And so they actually hurt the game because they are pushing out normal players from the best places to hunt. And so if we allow gold farmers to be the way people can bypass game systems to buy gold or get value, that hurts the game at multiple levels. And so what we've actually sort of decided to do is say, look, by us doing things like selling real estate directly, it means, first of all, instead of going to gold farmers, that comes to us. And secondly, it means that by not supporting the gold farmers, they're going to be in there at least less to be fighting against the actual players to try to explore and mine resources out of the game world itself. So we think it has multiple advantages of putting the money in the right hands, specifically ours, and
which helps the development of the game, of course.
Which helps develop the game, exactly. We have to have revenue to develop the game, but also hopefully will lessen the value to be a gold farmer, and therefore lessen the competition from third world country employees to be destructive to the game itself.
Right.
So let's see. Let's go past Lazarus. I wonder if we can get all the way around the world and go back into that area that I was talking about. I was looking for that owl's nest. All the way around. So this is the first time I've had to make this circumnavigation of the north end of the Vale. since they cut off my shortcuts, but I should be able to make it all the way around here. Looks like the trail goes pretty well around.
So as a veteran game developer and somebody who's been in the industry practically from the beginning of it, how do you handle negative reviews and criticism? I'm sure you've had plenty of that in your time.
Oh, sure. Well, but by the way, even positive reviews or criticism, Ultima 3 was Origin's first title. Here we go. Here's Owl's Nest through the woods here. And once we had our own company and published our own games, it was also the first time we began to get what you might refer to as fan mail. And fan mail in the games industry has a pattern. And what that is it's usually, in fact, I was responding to one piece of critical fan mail today, where, usually the first paragraph is, hey, I liked your games. I've played a bunch of them in the past. I've been checking out the new one. And then the whole rest of the letter is, by the way, here's what you did wrong, and here's what you should do about it. So it quickly becomes the let me tell you how to do your job, because they're usually kind of unhappy about one or more things in the game.
I've noticed that. I read a Time article recently that somebody wrote about Shroud of the Avatar, and the first 3 pages were about their expectations from all your other games, and I think they mentioned Shroud of the Avatar towards the end, and that kind of follows that same pattern.
Exactly. And so that's so by the way, so the point is, you get quite used to it. You also get to learn how to read between the lines, and there's a thing about development, which is, if you ask people specifically what they want, that is not necessarily that hopefully you're getting at least honest answers. That it really is people perceive a problem and they're describing what they think will help. Let's see, I'm seeing 2 exits. Here's the way I think we want to go this way. Down here, I believe, is where we need to be headed. Oops, I also see, no, that's my elemental getting low on hit points. Let's see if we can find our way down here. I'm looking for a cave entrance. There's a hidden lair of some bandits down here I'm trying to take us to.
Ooh.
But so what you do when you get critical review, or even when somebody's trying to say something nice that is, one of those, backhanded compliments in a way, or sideways compliment, you have to kind of read behind it and go, okay, well, what failed about either your communication about what to expect or your execution compared to what they might have wanted, and it's sometimes not as obvious as if people go, the game's too hard. If you ask people, they almost universally want the game to be easier and level faster. But of course, if you just do that, then the game actually becomes too easy and therefore not compelling. And so usually if people are saying things like the game's too hard, it usually means that the game is not fun enough from a minute-to-minute gameplay standpoint to be rewarding for the tiny bit of advancement you get. And so over time, you begin to learn how to reinterpret those criticisms, or at least not be too hurt by them, and find a way to more head-on address what the real problem is versus the way the problem was described. If that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. That's brilliant. Thank you. Other than your own projects, what's your current favorite game?
Oh, what's interesting is on the PC, which is my favorite platform for most games, I can count the number of games that I really love, and to me, love means I've played them to completion, on maybe 2 hands. And so it's only once every 2 to 3 years that I find a game that I like so much that I play it more than just enough to study it. I actually play it, all the way through the end, because I'm enjoying it from the start, and I'm enjoying it all the way to the end.
Right.
And that the first game I finished that I didn't write was Myst. And but then the list goes on to include things like some first-person shooters like Medal of Honor. It includes a lot of RTS like Command and Conquer and the original Warcraft, and includes games like World of Warcraft as well on the RPG side. But that's already half of the games probably just right there being mentioned. Interestingly, as a gamer, I actually play more time on my iPad and iPhone than I do on PC these days. And I can still kind of go through but it still fits the same pattern of there's it's more often that I'll buy something, play it for 10 minutes, and throw it away than it will be that I play it. But but as I look at here my iPhone, the first time I knew that mobile games were going to work was with a game called Spider, and that was the first time there was a UI and gameplay that I felt really fit together and mechanically worked. And so Spider, I'm a big fan of. Plants vs. Zombies, the Kingdom Rush series, something called Battleheart, and I even like some real retro, would be even overstating it, some super simplistic games, like there's one called A Dark Room, which might be my most recent favorite, which is all text-based. There's no graphics in it at all.
Interesting.
And so a lot of truly retro gaming. Okay, so we're here in this place called Owl's Nest, by the way, and had we gone into Owl's Head, a bigger city nearby, we might have heard that there were these bandits who lived here in town. And something you should do instead of me is double-click on that guy, that shady trader. He actually has trade, so sorry, never mind. I was trying to get you into a conversation, not into buying and selling. So let's exit that guy. Let's come down here. Okay. Because conversation is something that has been important to me in this game too. Let me just test this bandit here, see if he has something for me to say. Hang on. Yes, but if you now, I've just quit talking to that bandit. If you double click on that bandit there.
Hello.
Yes, and you can do things like you can say, hello, what is my name? So actually speak in English, type out full sentences, and you'll have to tell me what he says since I'm not watching the conversation he's having explicitly with you.
He says, I have no time for you. Be gone. I said, hello, what is your name?
Okay,
that's none of your concern. I have no time for you. Be gone.
Okay, so he's not a very happy guy, so you can exit with him, but let's see if we can go find their leader, who is, I think, a little more personable. And again, it's been a while since I've been here in this little place. Oh, look, here's a prisoner over here. He might be more interesting. So double-click on that prisoner, and let's see what he has to say.
I say, hello? I hate to be a bother, but I don't really feel that comfortable about holding an involved conversation while, being held prisoner and all that. Not that I'm suggesting violence, no. Actually, come to think of it, I actually am suggesting violence. Very much so, actually. Please?
Yes, and so, so he's actually, of course, hoping that we might rescue him. But before we do, let's go somewhere else, because obviously if we start a fight in here, it will be a big fight. But this is a place. Oh, here's the bandit leader over here. So maybe this guy might have a little more to say for us. But in Owl's Head, we will have heard that these red sash bandits are hanging out over here, that they're doing a black market bit of activity between the mainland and this part of the Vale. They can be both of good use to us, but they also are available for bounty hunting, if you call that meaning. So what does this guy have to tell you?
I said, what do you want? I said, tell me what you're doing down here. He said, I thought I told you already. Where is here?
Okay, so now if you say, what is your... Why don't you say, my name is John Beetlebear?
That's nice, John. Now, what do you want?
Okay, and so by the way, that he will now remember your name forever. And so every NPC in the game, if you meet them and ask them there, and right now it says Bandit Leader. If you say, what is your name, we'll see if he's willing to tell you his name. Some are, some aren't.
I said, what's your name? I'm Black Pond, and I take care of any problems around here. I ain't gonna be a problem, are you?
Now, when I look at him, I still see him just referred to as Bandit Leader because I don't know his name yet. I've never asked him his name. But if you have names on, do you play with names on or off?
I do.
And so you might actually see then, if once you exit, you'll see that he will be labeled by the name that you now know of his.
That's awesome.
And again, so the game is keeping very, very careful state information. He remembers what he's talked to you about. He remembers the name. It knows you obviously know his name. And you'll notice that you're typing with text. There's no chat bubbles. One of my frustrations with a lot of role-playing games these days is the exclamation points over your head, the automatic copying of information into a quest log, The clicking on the quest log usually then puts an arrow on the map to tell you where to go. And if conversation is text bubbles, you just click on all the things that aren't stupid to say, and eventually they'll copy into your quest log the one thing you actually needed to know, which was where to go do the next task. And you'll notice that doesn't show up in our game at all. And so you actually not only have to speak to them in English, but it's up to you to keep notes or know where to go or anything else. And we do put an automatic journal for you. I don't know if I doubt that what he had to say was worthy enough to be able to have been automatically put into your journal. But if you hit J for journal, you might see that you already have a few entries since you've been playing for a few days.
Yes.
And that is when somebody tells you something significant, we do copy it into your journal. That way you're not forced to keep copious notes. But that's the closest we have to a quest log, is just basically chronological note-taking.
A lot of your games have inspired players over the years to, break out the grid sheet paper and, make maps and write things down. So, I mean, this is incredible that you're actually giving the power back to the players as far as how they play the game.
Exactly right. And it was just, for me, somewhat, frankly, disheartening to see how brain-dead a lot of role-playing games had become, in that you're not really role-playing, nor are you really using your brain to kind of figure out what to do next. You're just sort of mindlessly being led by the nose to the exclamation points and the arrows and events on the screen while going through a level grinding game. And by the way, again, not to knock level grinding. I mean, I think that games that do that well, the challenge, a well-designed challenge and reward cycle, which I think a lot of other games have done way better than I've ever done in my games, I think are still understandably popular. I am affected by that too. I enjoy that as much as anyone else, but that's neither my interest or forte. Some of the team members now are way better than that than I am. So hopefully we'll get better than we have been in some of our previous games on that with Shroud of the Avatar. But the thing, at least that my part of Shroud of the Avatar is much more focused on why you're here and what the virtual reality is like, instead of that level up balance, that leveling balance. I'm not trying to find my way out. If you're wondering what I'm now doing, is I'm doing the old left-hand rule of being in a maze. If you stay to one side, you should be able to find your way out. There we go.
Now, we only have a few minutes left, so I just want to ask you a couple more questions. And,
sure, go ahead.
We do get a lot of budding and non-budding game developers that view our channel, and what I'd like to know is, what's the biggest piece of advice that you can give to game developers in general as far as their careers go and what they can do?
Fascinating. And by the way, I'm just going to point out, before I answer that question, look here on this table in front of him. You'll see there's a book on the table, Wolf and Dog in this case. And so even all the written materials of the game are unique. Players are going to be able to also add books of their own into the world. And a lot of them are just incidental, and a lot of them will actually be important information for gameplay.
This is cool. It's got a picture in it and everything.
Yeah, and so but to answer your question about game design, I find it interesting that if you look at the growth of companies, including Origin, we published many games, but it was the games led by myself or Chris Roberts or Warren Spector that tended to do the best. And that was consistent from the first games we three worked on to the last games we three worked on. They were statistically more likely to be successful. And so what I find interesting about that is that you then go back and say, okay, well, what is it about those people? And if you look at other game companies, you sort of see the same thing. Look at Will Wright. You look at
Molyneux.
Peter Molyneux. Yeah, thank you. And you look at people who have a track record of success, and usually they still have a better than 50-50 chance of making a success the next time around. And so you do some analysis of how those people do their work, and I think there's some interesting things that come out of it. And one of them is this kind of devotion to perfection of whatever your vision is. But another one that I at least find very helpful is a devotion to research. And so my number one thing that I give people when they want to get into this field of game design is research. And what I mean by that is that it's far too common for somebody to get in and say, hey, I really like first-person shooters. I really like the great first-person shooter from whatever company made the most recent great one that's out there. I'm going to go make a first-person shooter, but I'm going to fix something that I think they did wrong. I'm going to go, add more med packs or put better portals or, add, giant monsters instead of small monsters, whatever it might be.
Right.
And the problem with that is that answer is too easy. Too easy in the sense of, if you're thinking of correcting a mistake those people are making, so are probably many other people in the games industry, as well as the people who made that game. And they're probably going to go make a sequel, and they're probably hearing that same feedback from other people playing their game. And so by the time you build an engine from scratch or a game from scratch to compete with them and what they're doing, they'll have already had their sequel out. And they're better at that game making than you are probably. And so you're going to play catch up, and you're playing chase, and you're likely to lose. Instead, if you say, look, I have something fresh and new that I want to, in my mind, the only way to say something fresh and new is to do extensive research. And so for every one of my games, I have deeply researched usually a handful of subjects. I've never just sat down and said, okay, I'm going to make a new medieval fantasy with more things to play in it. And fundamentally, that's what it is. There's going to be tables and jugs and books and NPCs and monsters to fight. Of course there is. But that's just the beginning. You then need to sit back and say, okay, well, starting with Ultima 4, if I was going to make up a philosophy, basically start a religion of sorts, I needed to really understand philosophy. And I never knew philosophy in school, but I said, for me to relevantly speak in a game about philosophy, I need to know philosophy. And so I studied it more than most of my team members have to this day. And so I'm still sort of the expert in that particular area on the team, just because I've thought about it a lot, because I've researched it a lot. And then we say, okay, I've been inspired by Tolkien. I really love his creation of languages and things in the game. And so I said, okay, I want to be a language creator. Well, if I'm going to be a language creator, well, I needed to study languages. And so, the first one I put in was simple. It was just runic, basically stolen from Tolkien, or I really went back through encyclopedias of the same original source of Druidic runes.
Yes. Extrapolated
my own version slightly, because they're all basically the same. But then I went on to the Logos, for example.
Logos.
I went on to, which by the way was a very hard piece of development.
I loved Logos.
Having to do with vocalizations. There's every time I create those, I do a ton of research to make sure they're reasonable, they're realistic, they're internally consistent, they feel self-evident, and they lend a sense of truth and reality of the world we're creating.
Right.
If you then decide, that I'm going to tell a story, I was inspired in Ultima 7. Interestingly, this was at a period of time when Scientology was taking a bashing in the general public, and I was kind of curious as to why. And so, I did a whole bunch of research about not just Scientology, but a lot of other smaller religions that are often described as a little bit cultish. And so I said, okay, well, why is that the description that is being used? Of what is the exact behavior? What are their tenets? I'm very into meme study, where you go like there's certain things that survive the test of time well, and understanding why those survive the test of time helps you design your own memes. And so again, those sorts of that research is, I think, what really gives a game its depth, its believability, and ultimately helps you create something that's original and not just a Me Too slight variation on what's been done before.
And that's very evident whenever I've personally played any of your games. Just every system seems to be so well thought out and researched. I feel like I can immerse myself in every little tiny thing that I find and always find something new.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're just about done. I want to ask you one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
In relation to the last question, what kind of advice can you give to everybody in general as far as life goes?
It's interesting. I wish I had particularly good advice on that, but and this may seem like a bit of a cop-out. But when you think of the virtues that my games have espoused, truth and love and courage, even though I know that that is fiction, I wrote it as a piece of fiction. I wrote it as something that was designed for game mechanics, and so I had a very specific set of constraints that I was trying to fulfill. That being said, I did a lot of research on moral philosophy, and I read the religious texts of a variety of religions. I looked at ancient Greek philosophy treatises, and really tried to the way I did it is I actually had a wall that I was using for about a year where I put up Post-it notes of every virtue or every vice that might motivate people to good or bad behavior, and then I began to group them based upon things that that I felt that seemed to be related to each other. And when I synthesized those three principles, truth and love and courage, I actually think they're a pretty darn good set of three life principles, broadly speaking. So though that I understand that it's part of a game, I still find it to be personally inspirational. If I'd add one more thing onto that, though, I'd say that one of the kind of best life lessons that I have kind of observed in the world around me is that opportunities for everyone to better themselves or improve their station or be happier in life in general happen all the time. I think that what really is important in life is to be able to recognize an opportunity that is laid before you, recognize it, to be prepared for it. In other words, properly trained to be able to take advantage of an opportunity when it shows up, and then finally to have the courage really to take it on, to have the guts to jump and risk failure, to attempt to take that path that might provide you more happiness or more success, whatever's motivating you in life.
I think that this interview is a perfect example of an opportunity that was presented to me, and I'm glad that I did seize that, and it was an extreme pleasure, and I'll never forget the day that I sat down with Richard Garriott, and we talked about Shroud of the Avatar, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, and thank you for making this game.
My pleasure. Thank you, and it's been a great pleasure. And by the way, you and others who have been recently embracing Shroud of the Avatar are so important to us. But first of all, just brings us an incredible pleasure to see you all in playing and enjoying it so much. But as well, the fact that you're sharing that outwardly with the rest of not only our existing community, but the rest of the gaming community broadly is very meaningful to us. So I thank you also for this same opportunity, as well as the last few weeks, especially of time you've been here playing alongside us, bringing this world to life.
I couldn't say anything to top that, so let's just go ahead and let you have the rest of your day. I know you're very busy, and I'm sure we'll see you in game. I've already seen you, 3 times now in game, so looking forward to what's coming next in Release 17. For everybody on the line, you can check out Shroud of the Avatar at shroudoftheavatar.com. You can follow Portalarium at Portalarium on Twitter. You can follow Shroud of the Avatar at Shroud of Avatar. And you can also follow Richard Garriott, the person we've been interviewing, the developer and creator of this game, at Richard Garriott.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right.
Well, guys, that was pretty awesome.
Let me get the camera off my screen.
So, Beetle, real quick here. I know you're going to probably want to take a quick little break, get some water, stuff like that. But I've asked Raph. There were a lot of specifically game functionality or gameplay questions during the interviews. So I've asked Raph, since he's back, if he wouldn't mind fielding a few questions, if there are some unanswered questions from the chat as far as that goes. And we want to thank you all for coming and attending. And I believe we're staying on for a bit, right, Beetle?
Yes. I need to hit the bathroom really bad.
Let's take a quick break then. I did give them a couple of warnings that we would be continuing the stream, but taking a quick break after the interview concluded. So they should be ready for that.
My stream isn't showing up, but I can see that it's still going.
It had to be refreshed at one point.
All right, so I'm just going to sit in this cave, and you guys can read this story about the dogs here. I'm going to take a quick little break, And we'll be back in just a couple minutes. I'm going to mute the stream, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon. Alright, I am back, and so is Ambush Gamer. We need some doers. Doers. Wow. I do not know what's going on in this chat.
Don't worry about it. They say I'm giving away a door.
Oh.
So I'm telling them it's a door to my garage and they can go clean it.
They can paint it?
Clean it.
Oh. Let me get this BRB off my face. Alright guys, so, oh, this is really loud. Okay, that's better. So we just interviewed Richard Garriott. That was a pinnacle point in my life as a game designer myself, a game developer, and a player. Grew up playing the Ultima series. Played Ultima Online for 12 years. Easily put $1,000 worth of subscription fees into that game. But that was great, and we had a lot more questions, but you know, you can only ask so many things within an hour period, and I think we got some good answers from Richard, a legendary game designer. I mean, he's created game concepts that have trickled their way into other games, and you can see his inspiration everywhere, and I certainly feel inspired after talking to Richard himself. Even as a game developer, while he was saying something, it made me realize that even on my own game, we're doing the due diligence of making the game design document, but sometimes that's not...
And Beetle, I'm just going to interject here real quick for those that are listening to and maybe get a little confused in chat. There is no door giveaway, guys. So let's just kind of chill out on the door conversation, or I'm going to have to start, you know, timing people out and stuff. And I really am not in the mood to ground y'all, but I will.
Yeah. Let's behave. Behave.
But if you guys do have questions about the game itself, about the gameplay, about where to get it, about what to do, how to be a noob, all of that, do shut them out in chat. We do have people. So, and potato salad and reggae, you guys have like 10 seconds to be nice.
Nah, I'm timing them out.
Okay.
I have little tolerance. Anybody else?
Yeah, you can be grounded too, just because you said I'm not your mom. I'm Mommy Mandy, and I'm the Ambush Gamer, and y'all behave yourselves on my channel.
Dakon Jones, you're the last one left, so if you want to keep doing
yeah,
that.
he's been in here for a while, and he's
okay?
He's been, you know, asking questions that are, I would call them legitimate questions, even if they're asked in an argumentative tone. So he's opening up some nice conversation for some of the other chatters. So,
checking tweets
no
and
worries, guys.
So what I was saying is that Richard has definitely inspired me, even in my own current project, which I'm going to start working on again tomorrow. I kind of took a couple weeks off to play Shroud of the Avatar and do get ready for this interview and stuff. But, you know, we have the game design document and all that stuff, but have we really done the research? You know, it's a fun little game just to kind of work on game design and stuff, not really make money off of it, but have I done enough research? Now the question is in my mind, so I'm definitely inspired. Yeah, I'm not tolerant at all, Raph, now that
I'm a little more tolerant just because I like to give a little room for overexcitement.
You like to give the benefit of the doubt.
I do, but yeah, they don't. But when you make me mad, then it's over.
All right, guys. So
did you guys get inspired by that? Especially like Yusithal, I think Des is in here, Tobor, Moronics. I know all of you guys do, you know, stuff like that.
And Moronics, I did miss your Skype chat because I was interviewing Richard Garriott. I know I should have told him to like go away so I could talk to you, but just giving you a little crap.
And Raph, I don't mod anybody that I don't think I don't trust to use the ban hammer judiciously and as needed. So no, ban away when you feel it's necessary.
We trust you, Raph.
Especially when we're taking a quick break and they come in.
I think Raph has incredible judgment, and I'm not biased because he chose us to help with the streaming efforts. But I just think, in general, he has great judgment, so...
Yes.
So, yeah, research. I mean, he answered a lot of questions about Shroud of the Avatar, but I was fascinated by his answers to what kind of advice, in general, And research is absolutely important when you're making a game. Even if it's a little shump or something like that, do your research. Another theme that really resonated through the interview was innovation. And that's something I noticed even before the interview, is that Richard has seemed to take all of these game design concepts that he originally created and recreated and innovated on and innovated them yet again. And that's definitely what I'm seeing within this game. So is the party in Sawtown? Maybe I'll go there. Is everybody there?
And just asking the chat who all is a game dev. And is there anything that you guys heard today that surprised you, that you didn't expect to hear, that you didn't know, that, there was so much more we wanted to be able to talk about, like Richard's experience in